Good morning, Bishop Leah Daughtry. Welcome. Welcome to the state of New Jersey. Welcome to Kean University. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for joining us for this four-part roundtable series, COVID-19, the path forward. And so I want to focus on what we're doing at Kean, doing some really tremendous things. And so I'm going to turn this over to you, and you are sandwiched between a great Kean team. And so again, welcome to Kean, New Jersey.
Thank you so much, Kelly. And to all of you who are joining us this morning, thank you for joining us for this tremendous opportunity for us to learn, to grow together as we dissect some of the issues surrounding COVID-19 and the vaccine, which is now being made available to us across this nation. This is an all-star panel of experts, of practitioners, community activists, and we're glad to be here with you as we share this information. It is always good for me to be with the community of New Jersey. For many of you don't know, I graduated from Teaneck High School many years ago. But we are happy to be with you this morning. And to Dr. Ripollet, thank you for your vision in bringing us together. This is the first of 4 sessions that we're going to be having that Kean University is sponsoring over the course of the month to help educate us, inform us, and inspire us to do what's necessary to keep ourselves healthy, our families, and our communities. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our host, Dr. Lamont Ripollet, the president of Kean University. We are so proud of him and of his courageous leadership. And this program is just one of the many things that he is bringing to Kean University with his energy, with his passion, and with his inspired leadership. So Dr. Ripollet, thank you for bringing us together, for hosting this event, and we welcome you to share any opening remarks that you may have.
Thank you, Bishop Daughtry. I want to just, thank you for actually accepting an invitation to really host this. It's an important series, but I want to welcome everyone to Kean University's first COVID-19 vaccination in New Jersey pathway series. I welcome everyone who is watching this panel virtual today, both those in our Kean University community and those around the state. I know a lot of people have Zoom fatigue, and it says a lot that not only did our wonderful panel and panelists join us today, but so many viewers did as well. These issues matter. We're all part of the solution, so thank you for being here. However, I am also grateful to our distinguished speakers, as the moderator said. Our moderator, Bishop Leah Daughtry, is going to guide our conversation. She represents the 5th generation of pastors in her family, and that's truly incredible. It was such a pleasure to meet you on your book tour last year. I look forward to learning more from you today. And we also have our very own U.S. Representative Bonnie Watson Coleman, who is serving a 4th term in the U.S. House of Representatives, representing parts of Middlesex, Mercer, Somerset, and Union County. Then we also have the Reverend Derek Green, Senior Advisor to Governor Murphy for Diversity and Urban Affairs. Both of you were here with me when we kicked off this roundtable series last Friday, and I appreciate your support, and also thank you for serving on our first panel. We also have Dr. Eddie Bresnick, former Deputy Commissioner and State Epidemiologist from the New Jersey Department of Health, who has been advising the governor on COVID-19. Welcome, Dr. Bresnick. We also have New Brunswick Councilwoman Clarabelle Cortez. She's Governor Murphy's nominee for Middlesex County Surrogate and a friend of mine, and also a former board member in North Brunswick Public Schools, so thank you very much. And we have Reva Foster, my friend, chairwoman of the New Jersey Black Issues Convention. And we also have Kimberly Cook, president of the Hillside Board of Education right here at Kean University. So I know we're going to have some great conversation with this group. When we established this series of roundtables, our vision was that we wanted to have the tough conversations, but important conversations about the state's path forward through this pandemic health crisis. The single most important conversation we must have is about vaccines. We all know there are many New Jerseyans out there who are eager to receive one of the available vaccines and are frustrated by the wait. However, I'm here to say that's turning. It's turning around the corner, so I look forward to some of those vaccinations increasing. We know also that there are many people, particularly those in communities of color. We have a lot of mistrust and apprehension about receiving a vaccine. Those concerns are very real and very understandable given events in the history of this nation, but we must move past them if we are to move our state forward. I recently joined together with 5 other college and university presidents of color in New Jersey to issue a joint statement regarding and encouraging everyone to get vaccinated when they're eligible. We felt it was important to send a clear message. Now is the time for facts and science, not fear. And at Kane, we are committed to being a leader on this issue because we understand, we know the importance of what it is, both on our campus and around the state, to receive a vaccination. I'm excited to get this conversation started. I'm going to turn it back over to Bishop Daughtry. Thank you once again, everyone, for being here today. And Bishop, you're up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Repollet, again, for your leadership and your vision and bringing us together and leading this conversation forward. There is a lot of suspicion in our communities, and we hope to dive in to a lot of that today. I will say that I myself have had my apprehensions and suspicions, but I did my research. I talked to all the people I could talk to, and I am happy to report this morning that I went and had my first dose of the vaccine yesterday. So I'm excited. Besides, let me just tell you, I'm afraid of needles and all of that, but it took exactly half a second. And besides a little arm soreness cleared up by some Motrin, I was fine, and I'm excited to be on my way to being able to protect my family and to see my daddy, who I haven't seen in a year. So I am excited about that. So I hope that we will be able to allay many of the fears and answer some questions for you so that you can feel confident and assured as you move forward to protect yourself, your family, and your community. We have a number of great speakers, as the president has share with us this morning, and we're going to hear from each one of them in turn, and then we're going to have some conversation with them and ask them some questions. And there's no better person to kick this conversation off than my Congresswoman, my sister in faith, and my soror and Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Congresswoman from the 12th Congressional District, Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman. You know her as a fierce fighter for the state of New Jersey, for her district, the entire state, and across the nation. And we are so proud that she is now the chair of the Homeland Security Subcommittee on Transportation and Maritime. And she is the vice chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. We are so proud of her, the moral authority that she brings to the Congress and to all of these issues that concern our communities and our people. So without any further ado, soror sister Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman.
Thank you, Bishop. It is so good to be here with you and to see your beautiful face. I miss seeing you and talking to you, but you're so busy tending to your flock, which it continues to grow. God bless you and God bless your family. So Dr. Repollet, I'm telling you, have hit the ground running here at Kane University. I have to tell you that it was very enlightening for me, who once was involved with the state colleges on a number of different levels, to see you pull together the presidents of color of the state colleges and other colleges in New Jersey to try to connect with our community, to try to become the kind of trusted voices that we need in order to move forward. This pandemic is one of the worst experiences we've experienced in 100 years, and we want to make sure that we don't have it again in the next 100 years. But it is very important that the communities that are underserved, the communities that have the greatest suspicion, our communities, the poor, the Black and the brown communities, recognize a couple of things. One is that this is a safe vaccine, that this is not a part of an experiment. This is a part of creating a healthy environment. And that number two, you should have access to that vaccine. And from my perch on the federal level and in the Appropriations Committee and a part of the Black Caucus and the Progressive Caucus, we want to make sure that our communities not only have access to testing and other resources, including PPE, we need them to understand how vitally important getting this vaccine is so that we can at some point return to normalcy in our state and in our country. having these information seminars, having faces that you're bringing to Zoom, to the internet platform, to have these conversations is vitally important. I even have members in my family that question whether or not they're going to get the vaccination. I told them, well, if you don't get it, you can't come to my house. So put that in your cap and think about that as well. Just that not only that you're doing this, but you're doing even more platforms, more discussions to get us rolling in the state of New Jersey, to look at getting students back to school and athletes back on the fields and on the courts, to get women back to work, in the implications of this virus on women. These are all vitally important discussions. And God bless you for taking this on, and for the vision that you have, and for the wonderful support staff that you have. It's important to have our clergy community, our legislative community. Craig, you're representing it right now for us, and for our Black Issues Convention to be a part of this discussion, as well as our elected officials on local levels. Thank you. God bless you. And together, I think that we can communicate to our communities how vitally important it is to get this vaccine. We can make sure from the federal level that those resources are available, and we can work with our wonderful progressive governor to ensure that the distribution and availability is as convenient as it could possibly be for our communities. Thank you, and God bless the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Congresswoman, so very much. And we are so grateful that you are in office. We have a new president of the United States who has made this a priority and who has announced new vaccine availability. And we're grateful to have you in New Jersey partnering with our new president to ensure that our communities are able to access the vaccine. Is there anything that you want to share with us about how the equity issues are unfolding for our communities? You hear a lot about people from different communities coming into our community get vaccines. The lines are long. It's hard to get appointments. How are you working with the new administration to ensure that those of us in New Jersey are able to access the PPE and the vaccine equitably?
Thank you for asking that question. The Black Caucus has made this a priority issue. Many of us have been working with the administration, as well as working in our respective states to make sure that the vaccine gets to where it needs to go. I'm really pleased to hear that we are going to have a vaccine for the 320 million people that are in this country, and we should be vaccinated up by the end of July, sometime like that. I'm glad that we're using churches. And Derek Green, Reverend Derek Green, is very instrumental in having brought that to our governor as a means to distribute the vaccine. Buster Soros' church has already done it, or is getting ready to do it, and they had over 4,000 people sign up in like 24 hours. So if we place this information in the hands of trusted voices, and if we ensure, which we are doing, we're working with FEMA and their Civil Rights Office and making sure that there's equity of distribution, particularly in states where governors have not expressed a desire to be as equitable in the distribution. It's about accountability. And so we're ensuring that while the vaccines are becoming available and the PPE is becoming available and the testing is becoming available, that it is following the paths of greatest need, and we're holding those accountable when that doesn't happen.
Thank you so much. Now, the Congresswoman says I'm busy, but she's really busy. So we talk by text a lot. I know you've got a busy day ahead of you. So thank you for spending your morning with us. And we look forward to working with you and all that you're going to accomplish on our behalf. We're proud of you, and go get them, girl. Have a great day.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless you. Our next speaker is the just referenced Reverend Dr. Derek Green. Derek Green is the Senior Advisor for Diversity, Faith, urban and regional growth in the state of New Jersey for Governor Phil Murphy. And in this role, he obviously wears a number of hats. One of those is bringing his relationship with all of the faith leaders in our state. It's deep, it's wide, it's broad. He can reach anybody in the faith community. So while I know from personal experience that role is not easy, it is always essential. So Reverend Green, please join us and share some remarks with us about what your work is doing to ensure that our people in New Jersey are vaccinated.
Bishop, it's so good to be with you this morning, and thank you so much for that introduction. Dr. Repollet, just God bless you for what you're doing, and the Congresswoman was absolutely correct. You've hit the ground running here at Kean University, and to all the panelists, Kelly, all the panelists, Kelly, thank you for the introduction or the invitation. And my Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman, Reva, for your leadership. I have to say this: these people, Bishop, have been instrumental in my life, particularly Reva and Kelly and the Congresswoman over many years. Let me get right into it. We look at all these issues from an equity lens, all of them. And particularly related to Black and Brown communities. And the good news here is that our governor didn't wait until March of 2020 to begin looking at these issues and other issues impacting Black and Brown communities. He didn't start it in March of 2020 when the pandemic hit us hard. We've been doing it, we did it during the campaign and day one. And so early on, we established a faith leaders roundtable where we give faith leaders, my full title is Senior Advisor for Diversity, Faith, Urban and Regional Growth. And Bishop, you understand what all that means. And so we wanted to give faith leaders a venue to impact public policy. So we continue to talk with faith leaders throughout this administration. So it wasn't like anything new when we began to talk with them and we organized during the pandemic. The first thing we did was we formed a prayer call first. And faith leaders, community leaders, business leaders from around the state came together just to pray when the pandemic happened. And then I saw this, God spoke to me, and I saw this as an opportunity to organize. A mentor of mine, my big sister, Reverend Dr. Virginia Thomas, always taught me to educate, organize, mobilize. Educate, organize, mobilize. And so I found that the prayer call was an opportunity to do just that. And just the brilliance, the commitment to working with communities in our call in the morning has resulted to us meeting every single day, 7 days per week. And we're going on a year next month. Why is that important? Because it gave us the ability to communicate with leaders who are connected to our communities in real time. So I would get the governor's briefings and then go over the information with these leaders so that they would be able to communicate what's happening in real time with the government to the community. Oftentimes in Black and Brown communities, we are behind when it comes to getting information so that we can empower our own people. But this time it did not happen because we were accustomed to already working with these leaders. So the first thing was testing. Remember, at first, African Americans, many of us were not being tested. Why? Because of the stigma related to being positive. Well, what do? How do you, the whole idea of social distancing in some communities is a biased idea because you can't social distance when you are multi-generational in a household. So many of us were afraid to get tested. Do I have a service job? Do I let my employer know that I am positive for COVID? will I have my job after 2 weeks of quarantine? There were so many questions that were unanswered. And so what we did was, as a call, we decided to take on the issue of testing in churches. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be honest with you all, that not everybody believe me. Not everybody understands the history of the Black church when it comes to our communities being a social, spiritual, and economic pillar of our community. And I said, we need to offer testing in churches because our people, Black and brown people, will go and get tested in places where they trust. So 30,000 tests later, Bishop. 30,000 tests later. And this came from the grassroots. And so we're doing the same thing with the vaccine. The first voice we heard regarding the vaccine panelists was a voice that nobody trusted. We heard a lot of misinformation coming from DC. So many Black and brown people said, you know what, we're going to sit back and wait on this. Folks in my own family, my own wife said, I don't know about that. I'm going to wait and see. If they get it, and nothing happens to them, then I'm going to get it. So what we did early on in the prayer calls called the Interfaith Action Movement, what we did early on was we provided venues for people. And this was in August. When we first started talking about the vaccine, we had Hackensack Meridian on the call. We had University Hospital and Dr. Elnahal, Commissioner, you know him well, former colleague of yours, to give people the accurate information, allow them to ask questions, and to be able to make decisions for themselves. We did that back in August and September of 2020. And now I believe we are turning the corner as it relates to our people wanting to get the vaccine. And the governor announced last week that we're going to have vaccines in houses of worship. And we believe that with initiatives like that, when we have access to the vaccine through senior buildings and churches and mosques, that we believe our people will get the vaccine and will be able to save lives.
That is simply outstanding, Reverend Green, simply outstanding, because you are right. Trusted voices are always key in these times. People want information they can trust, and getting it from their houses of worship, whether they attend there or not. The pastor or the leader is often one of the most trusted voices. So how do people connect with these faith, if they're not a church member, or for the faith leaders who are listening to us, how do they connect up with your circle? How do they get involved? How do they get information? How can they be part of the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. My email address is Derrick, DERRICK, I'll put it in the chat, Derrick.green@nj.gov, Derrick.green@nj.gov. They can email me, and absolutely we will connect them with what we are doing on a daily basis. We were on this morning, we're on every day, 7 days a week. We have faith and community leaders from Salem County all the way up to Bergen County. And I will also say this, that we also have to ensure that we know there are too many policymakers that don't know anything about the Black and brown communities, but they're policymakers. They don't know a doggone thing about how our communities move, how we talk to each other, what makes us tick. Sometimes you can't depend on a computer. Sometimes you can't, they're not going to pick up the phone. You may have to go knock on that door. You may have to go and talk to a Mama Dolores in Newark who knows all the senior buildings, and be able to get these trusted voices and find unique ways to reach our people. And that's what we're trying to do in this administration. So Derrick.green@nj.gov, and we will get you connected right away.
Thank you so much, Reverend Green, for the work that you're doing. For those of you who are watching, if you want to make sure that your faith leader is involved, we invite you to reach out to Reverend Green to make sure that you're getting the information that your pastor, your mosque leader, your rabbi needs to have. in order for you to be fully informed. So thank you, Reverend Blaine. Please give my regards to Governor Murphy. He and I used to sit next to each other at the DNC. We shared office space. And so
Oh,
he's
wonderful.
a good man. He's a good man, and he's doing the great work that he needs to do as the governor of New Jersey.
God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you. God bless you. Our next speaker is Dr. Eddie Bresnitz, and we are so thrilled to have him. It's always good to have expert voices in these conversations. Dr. Eddie Bresnitz is joining us from the New Jersey Department of Health. And Dr. Bresnitz is an accomplished public health physician with board certifications in internal, pulmonary, and preventive occupational environmental medicine. He has a long career in expertise and extensive professional network in academia, government, public health, and the pharmaceutical industry with a focus on development of vaccines. So he knows the science about how these things work. That all of that boils down to he understands what's in these vaccines and how they work. And that's the information we want to know today. So we are happy, Dr. Bresnitz, to have you with us. So break it down for us. Tell us what we need to know about the pharmacy, the pharmacological details of this vaccine. Welcome. Oh dear, have we lost Dr. Bresnitz?
No, I wasn't unmuted. I was following directions about keeping muted.
Okay. Welcome,
Thank you, Bishop, and thank you for having me on this to represent the Department of Health. You know, we're about 2 months into, just a little short of 2 months into the vaccination campaign. I believe it was December 15th when the first vaccine was made available in New Jersey and nationally. And so 2 months is not a very long time. And in that period, we've had about 1.2 million doses administered in New Jersey, almost 1 million people having received a first dose. And so that's remarkable. And within a very short time period, we've had 2 vaccines that have become available. Despite that, you know, we have a long way to go. And we've heard about the number of vaccines that are going to be made available as time goes on. We heard today that Biden administration has signed up for additional vaccines from the manufacturers that currently have vaccines out there, and they're being provided to residents of New Jersey. I want some perspective here. We just this week, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, published a report of surveys that were done, a series of surveys that were done first in September and then in mid-December, just around the time that the vaccines were going to become available. And the data is interesting, and I think it sets the tone here of sort of the purpose of this meeting, and that is they asked the question to a sample of individuals on an internet sample of their intent to get vaccinated and how many people intended not to get vaccinated. And unfortunately, there was a large segment of the population that were intending not to get vaccinated for a variety of reasons, which I'll mention in a minute. But it differed by a variety of different factors. It differed by race and ethnicity, by education, by gender, educational status, annual income, and so on. The highest percentage of that population or subgroup of the population that intended not to get the vaccination was the Black and non-Hispanic self-defined population, where in September, 56% said they were not intending to get vaccinated. In December, it was 46.5%. That contrasts with the white non-Hispanic population of about 30 or 32% who decided they weren't going to become vaccinated. And if I go through gender, educational status, household income, health insurance status, basically there's a differential. Lower income meant they were more likely not to get vaccinated. Lower educational status, more likely not to get vaccinated, about a third of individuals. So we have, even as vaccines become more available, we're going to have a lot of work to do to get people, convince people, if you will, educate people about the importance of getting vaccinated. I mentioned the 2 vaccines that were made available. You've probably heard the efficacy of those vaccines is remarkable. About 95% for these two vaccines one from Pfizer, one from Moderna. 95% is an amazing efficacy for any vaccine. And by the way, when they broke down the vaccine efficacy by race or ethnicity, by age, by gender, by populations with underlying chronic diseases, that vaccine efficacy was essentially maintained virtually in all those subcategories to over 95%. So these are very, very efficacious vaccines. You have to get both doses. So Bishop, you got your first dose, you didn't have much problems with it. You got to come back for that second dose to make sure you've got the full immunity. And that's something that we have to encourage people, because all people can expect to have some side effect. There are two sort of categories. It's local injection site reactions, pain or swelling or tenderness or redness in the arm. And basically up to 90% of people, depending on the vaccine, will have something with the first dose and the second dose. And then there's the systemic reactions, something like headache or muscle aches or joint pains, a little less percentage, but still more than 50% will have it. And unfortunately, it'll be higher with the second dose than the first dose, but more so in younger people than older people. What we can tell people is essentially it'll be 1 to 3 days after the injection, mild to moderate nature, it'll pass for the most part. There were no significant, well, there were in both the control arm and the vaccine arms of the clinical trials. And by the way, both clinical trials had over 15,000 people who actually got the vaccine. In the Pfizer case, it was over 20,000 people who got the vaccine. So the efficacy, or the safety profile rather, is really very good for both vaccines. What would expect with other vaccines, such as the shingles vaccine. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we have now 33 million people in the country who've gotten vaccinated. Why is that important? Well, clearly because the more people get vaccinated, the more they'll be protected, the more likely we're going to drive this pandemic underground, if you will. But it also, in that time period since the first vaccine was given, the CDC and the FDA have been monitoring the safety of the vaccine in those 33 million people, not just the 70,000 or so people who were vaccinated in clinical trials, but now we've got over 30 million, and every day it increases. And I can honestly say, and glad to say, that in fact, there have been no new safety signals that have been detected in this post-authorization period when the vaccine became first available. So why is that important? Well, in this survey that I mentioned to you, they also asked people who intended not to get vaccinated, why don't you want to get vaccinated? What's the reason for that? Now, they did not break this down by race or ethnicity, but overall, the number one concern was side effects and the safety of the vaccine. Well, I just mentioned to you that those side effects, you can expect to have some, but they're mild to moderate in nature, and there have been no serious adverse effects that have been detected that would make people concerned. Secondly, the major reason was vaccine was developed too quickly. Well, it was developed over a very short period of time frame, but what really happened was all the phases of development were compressed. And usually a manufacturer will do it in sequence. And what these manufacturers did is they overlapped the various phases with the support of the government. And I can honestly say that the FDA review and the CDC review of the safety and efficacy of the vaccine was very thorough, with independent scientific advisory committees making their recommendation for using these vaccines. The third reason why people said that they intended not to get the vaccine was they wanted to wait and see how safe it was. Well, I just mentioned to you, we're now 2 months into this, 33 plus million people vaccinated, and no new safety signals. So those are concerns that we can respond to in the community of individuals who basically are hesitant to get vaccinated. And I'm hearing also from the previous speakers that they've already heard about people making decisions to get vaccinated. You read about it every day. The more people get vaccinated, the more people of varying communities get vaccinated, the higher the likelihood that people will make the decision to move ahead with this. And so, and the last major reason was don't trust the government. They didn't trust the government. I don't know what to say about that. That hasn't changed between the two surveys. Actually, it's gone up a little bit. All we can say is, all we can do here in New Jersey is tell the truth, be transparent, bring the information to the communities, explain things, answer questions, understand that people have concerns, and try to move them along the continuum of not wanting to get the vaccine to understanding that it's important not just for their health, but for their family's health and for the community's health as well. And I'll stop.
Thank you so much, Doctor. We appreciate the information that you shared, and I think you have correctly stated the concerns that folks have when it comes to the vaccine: mistrust of government, it was developed too fast, all of those things, because all the things that I said to myself when I was trying to decide about the vaccine. And I even said, I'm gonna wait and see if people's toes fall off, if the skin turns green, and then, then I'll decide if I'm gonna have the vaccine. But you correctly hit on that, and I thank you for your comments. I'm gonna come back to you in just a moment with some questions. But I wanna move now to the Councilwoman Claribel Cortez, who is a proud resident of New Brunswick, New Jersey. And she's the first Latino councilwoman in New Brunswick, and we are so glad to have her as the governor's nominee for Middlesex County Surrogate. She is a media executive, a community leader with more than 20 years of experience in digital media and working for organizations such as ABC, Fox, the Associated Press. We are so proud of her, of the work that she's been doing. And Councilwoman, please share your comments with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Repollet, for this amazing panel and for having me here today. Just one minor correction, I'm from North Brunswick. So I'm in the next town over, but equally love New Brunswick as well. They are our partners. I just want to add, so many things were mentioned here already, that in the Latino community, there is a current fear of immigration as well. So in addition to having the fear of the medical, is it safe? They are fearful of immigration. So I do want to emphasize that we are doing a lot of outreach, not just here in North Brunswick, but in New Brunswick as well, and also throughout the state, using our connections with our community leaders, our pastors, our nonprofit organizations, to give them that reassurance that ICE is not going to be there when you're going to go get your vaccine. At least I know that President Biden this morning, I believe, released a press release on this as well. Something else that needs to be conveyed is that a lot of this fear is not just a fear of the United States government, it's fear that they bring from their homeland. So we have to break through those barriers, and we have to also give them the information. I believe one of the previous surveys that was just conducted is that 47% of Latinos do not want to get vaccinated. That's a really high number, given the fact that we're dying at a high rate as well, and we're getting the COVID as well. I apologize. What I was going to say separately from that is that we need to communicate, not just in English, but we need to communicate in Spanish. Believe it or not, the Latino community is one of the communities that still trust the news. I have to say that, my father, he takes everything that comes on at 6:30 as gospel, and he's not alone. So we do need to also work actually with our Spanish news stations to make sure that they're conveying all these information to the community. The last thing that I want to add is, given my broadcast background, is that we also need to show the stories of people who look like us on television getting the vaccine. I'm one that when I am eligible to get the vaccine, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I am going to document my process to give people that trust that if I'm getting the vaccine, I trust it, you should as well. And I would like to see more of those stories out there as well. We need to show that Latinos are getting the vaccine. 2 weeks later, I'm still fine. A month later, they need to show that story to gain that trust.
Thank you so much. You raised really critical issues and important points about the concerns of our Latino brothers and sisters and those from the immigrant community who extend even beyond the Latino community, the Asian immigrants and African immigrants who share some of the similar challenges and concerns about their own safety, their personal physical safety as they pursue their health. So thank you so much, Councilwoman, for those remarks and for centering those issues for us.
No,
We're going to wrap
thank
back to
you.
you in just a moment for some questions, but we appreciate your being here. Our next speaker is going to be Sister Reva Foster, who is, I got so many papers here, who is from New Jersey Black Issues Conference, if I got that right. And we are so thrilled to have her here as the on the frontline work with the New Jersey Black Issues Conference, and in your professional career as the executive director of the Willingboro Senior Center. We love our seniors.
Yes.
We appreciate your work with this most vulnerable population. My dad is 90, my mom is 80, and so I'm concerned about them getting the vaccine. My mom is ready, my dad not so much. We're working on him. So share with us the work that you're doing and how we can support you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Repollet, for hosting this. This is valuable to all of the community, and especially I'm speaking out for the senior population, whether they are senior citizens as by the age, or whether they're veterans who are also seniors, which I also have responsibility in my community for. I want you to know that realizing that seniors and their chronic diseases that they suffer for years, we started programs in the senior center on self-management of chronic diseases. And those chronic diseases were, as you know, are heart disease, diabetes, and also with high blood pressures that affect our communities as well as other diseases. And so we started as well before the COVID, years ago, talking about Ask the Expert. And under Ask the Expert, we will bring in experts into the center every month to talk to seniors about what they needed to know. And we didn't realize it, but then we were developing trusted voices. Other than our voices that they would hear every day, we were developing trusted voices in the community, in the institutions that they would visit all the time. So you say, what are we doing? Well, now that COVID has started, seniors are not coming to the center. When I see them in the grocery stores with our masks on and socially distancing, my tears well up in my eyes because I miss them so much. And I say, I miss you. And they say, oh, we miss you so much. They not only miss coming to the center and to dealing with each other, they miss talking to each other about their conditions and about what is happening. And they're discussing COVID. They are discussing COVID. And that gives me an opportunity to say, yes, call your friends that you normally see at the center and talk to them about getting the vaccine. If there is reluctance, if there is hesitancy, they need to call their doctor. And we know their doctors are trusted voices. We know the senior is going to go to the doctor's appointments. We know they're going to get their medication. And we know the doctor is going to tell them, yes, you want you to come in here before you get it, but yes, go and get it. So the doctor is most important in senior and veterans' lives because they are the trusted voices they use even before COVID all the time. So we're doing that as well. Now, in the senior center and with Veterans Affairs and Community Affairs, we do wellness checks. We have a director of all the seniors that attend the senior center. It's confidential, so don't ask me for it. It's a confidential listing with their telephone numbers and their email addresses. And my staff, who are the only one allowed in the senior center now, we're making telephone calls to the seniors and we're calling it our wellness check. How are you doing? What you doing? How's the grands? And all of that. And we bring into that conversation COVID and how they need to visit their doctor, call for that appointment if they haven't made it already, in terms of it's not time for them to make it, but call their doctors and let their doctors know if they had some hesitancy about taking the vaccine. But we encourage them to take the vaccine all the time. But if there is some reluctancy, we always recommend they talk to their doctor to get their advice, doctor's advice. Because some of them are on medication. They say, well, what about this medication? I'm taking this. I have high blood pressure. Do you think I should take it? We are not doctors here. We do not give them advice on their behalf, but we tell them, you want us to help you set that appointment up with your doctor so you can talk to the receptionist to give that information to your doctor so your doctor can get back to you. And we are encouraging those that says, you know, my sister had it and she's all right. I'm going to go on and take it. We say, okay, do you need a ride? We're giving them rides to dialysis. We're giving them rides to their doctor's appointments, and we're giving them rides to be able to take their vaccines. And we are helping them register to take their vaccines. Now, we not only did that, but as some of you already know, we set up in our communities drive-through food pantries, because seniors need to be eating healthy vegetables and healthy fruits and healthy foods. And a number of our communities are considered as food deserts. They go to 7-Eleven, they go to Wawa's, and they come walking with their bags of groceries home. And they're essential workers because their income is not as large as most, and they have to prepare for their families as well. And multi-generational. Derek Green put that to light today in talking about multi-generationals living in homes, and it's hard to be able to allow them to socially distance. And we must realize these factors that affect the people of color in their homes. But we also must realize we need to help them work through that, help them understand that if a person is sick, if a person, they need to be isolated. They need to understand that they need to visit the doctor more often, and they need to call and talk to trusted voices to get recommendations on what needs to be done. Don't even talk about the church. That's more than a trusted voice. That's in the people of color, that's a place that they go and they trust that their word, they trust that the information that's going to be given to them, and they trust the people there are not going to steer them wrong. As a matter of fact, they're going to steer them in the right direction. And to have that to be a place that they can go and get tested, but then go and get their vaccine, that's a win-win situation. And we need to strengthen that throughout the state. And I'm so happy to see it happening, and also making it convenient at places of pharmacies like CVS, like Walgreens, like Rite Aid, to make sure that when they go and get their prescription, they know that that person that comes in and gives them their prescription all the time is somebody who knows them. Oh, hello, Miss Jones, how you doing? That there's a trusted person. And she said, well, what do you think about this vaccine? We're going to be giving it here next week. Okay, well, I'll sign up for it. I'll call, what number do I need to call? Those are some specifics that need to be taken care of for the senior population, as well as the population in general. I would like to also say that among my staff, I have a lady that speaks Spanish, and we have a nice population of Hispanics, and she's on the call, honey. She's making sure that she's calling those on our list of seniors and veterans, and they speak English, but I say speak that Spanish to them, honey, so they will really understand the innuendos and the necessary nuances that are necessary in that language to make them understand what you're saying. Don't let them try to interpret what you're trying to say. Now, as far as the New Jersey Black Issues, a number of you know that we had our conference, a 2-day, full-day conference, not just a workshop. We had a full-day conference on responding to the new abnormal in overwhelming the impact of COVID-19 in the Black families. And it covered workshops. And those workshops were health workshops, environmental workshops, educational workshops, and maternity and infant mortality, as well as others. We're not stopping there in terms of that. We are continuing every quarter to emphasize COVID and the vaccine and the importance of it. I hope I didn't take too long, because I know I can talk. But this is an important issue that we need to make clear to everyone. People are dying. I'm attending virtual funerals in my office on my laptop virtual funerals between my Zoom calls and my meetings and my budget information that I'm putting together. I don't want to continue to do that. I want us to have herd immunity where we can eliminate this COVID, and babies, which I call my seniors and my veterans, will be able to walk into their senior center and enjoy each other, socially distancing till this is over. So please, everyone that's helping us put the word out, help me get back to that place of a almost normal where the seniors can come into their place that they enjoy to be, as well as get the vaccines. I appreciate this opportunity and thank you very much for letting me be here to speak on this.
Thank you, Chairwoman. We appreciate your remarks and the work that you're doing with our seniors and our veterans. And we'll be back to you. I have a question for you in just a moment, but we want to hear from our last speaker, our last presenter, Hillside Board of Education President, Kimberly Cook. Kimberly is not only a Board of Education president, but she is also a police dispatcher and is often and affectionately referred to as a peace officer. Ms. Cook, we're delighted to have you here. Please share your work with us this morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Bishop Daughtry. Thank you, Dr. Repollet and Kean University for giving me the opportunity to sit with such a distinguished panelist. I too have taken my first and second COVID shots, and I encourage our community to look into it further and do the same. I had minimal side effects. Didn't make me tired, but that was it. So as COVID pertains to our educational community in our district, it was important that not only communicating COVID to our families, but keeping connected with our families, which meant our first move was to make sure our families' wellness was maintained. That included making sure our students who depend on our food services, such as our breakfast programs, continue to be serviced without interruption, as well as distributing masks to our families in needs. We had to take immediate steps to make sure our staff and students had a virtual platform to facilitate live instruction for our students. This included distributing Chromebooks and hotspots to all of our students, which we all can identify that was a struggle to get Chromebooks for most of the people across the United States. We were able to have 4 successful graduations last summer, which meant emphasizing social distancing and COVID protocols to our students and families, culminating the academic experience of our graduates deserved. We recently made a decision to keep our schools closed this year, which allowed our parents to plan their daily schedules and have more stability in their lives during these times of COVID. One additional way that we are connecting with our families is trying to keep hope within our district during COVID by creating new partnerships for our students through education, as well as we have an addition of parent empowerment universities and a Latino empowerment program for our parents. We think it's important to give our parents a support system so that they can be better advocates to our young scholars and support them in these times of COVID. And parents need an outlet to be heard during these times as well. So continuing to keep hope and stay connected, we have started to plan our prom under the stars for our students, as well as our graduations. We want everybody to continue hope that we are going to get through this. We are also developing a magnet school for 7th and 8th grade to open up this September. We have pressed on to move the Hillside School District forward as aggressively as we can under these circumstances. We have continued to keep our communication lines open through virtual means, robocalls, emails, and we have placed LED boards in front of our schools to communicate with our community. We have recognized that we need to use these tools to stay connected with our families and strongly encourage them to take the vaccine. God willing, come September, we can bring our students back to school. We identify that some of our parents, our guardians are older, and they need the comfort of knowing that when they send their children to school with other students, 800 students in the building plus staff, that they're going to come home and not bring COVID back with them. So we're trying to build the confidence in our community right now for our residents to feel comfortable coming out and getting their COVID vaccine. And I have heard a lot that everybody is looking for the vaccine. It has been a concern now where, how do I get the vaccine? So I think that is a topic that we need to discuss. I do know that CVS has opened up this morning to start giving vaccinations to our communities in New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Cook, for the work that you're doing with our parents and caregivers. So I want to step back for a moment to our last four panelists and ask you a couple of questions as we are sorting through this vaccine, proper information distribution, how people get appointments. And I just want to ask you a couple of questions. Dr. Brezins, you shared with us some of the concerns that people have as they're considering the vaccine. From your vantage point, what are the key things for those of us who are listening? What are the top 3 or 4 talking points that we should have to share with our relatives, with our families, with those we hear in the streets talking about stuff that is raising suspicion? What's our pushback? Give us some talking points that we can share easily with our folks.
Well, I mentioned some of them in my remarks. Number one, that the vaccines that are currently available, and there are new ones that are on the horizon, as you know, that the vaccines that are currently available have tremendous efficacy in preventing COVID-19 infection, and in particular, serious infection as defined by being hospitalized, being in an ICU, being on a ventilator, and so preventing death. That's number one. Number two, that the safety profile has been evaluated both during the clinical trials and since the vaccines have been made available to the public in tens of millions of people, and there have been no new safety signals. It's basically what you would expect with a vaccine with local injection site reactions. What I can say, and I'm going to attribute this quote to a colleague of mine, is that there have been almost 500,000 people in this country and over 20,000 in New Jersey, with communities of color being disproportionately impacted by all measures of disease. As I said, 450,000 and 20,000 deaths, and yet there have been no deaths attributed to the vaccines themselves. So as my colleague said, we should take our chances on the vaccine and not on our chances of surviving a COVID-19 infection. And I thought that was a pretty good quote, frankly. The issue also of rapid development, it was rapid development. It was frankly an amazing partnership between the public and private sectors, but there were no corners that were cut. And three independent scientific advisory communities looked at the data and said this vaccine works well, it's safe to give, and everybody should get vaccinated. And finally, the last comment I made, which was that if you're not so much concerned about yourself, and most people are, then think about those who are next to you. Either you live with them or you're close friends, maybe friends you haven't seen. You mentioned, I think, Bishop, that you haven't seen your parents in a year. And a lot of people are in that boat. If you get vaccinated and complete your vaccination series and maybe have to tolerate a little bit of a side effect, it's worth it, because then you can go back to living your normal life. You'll still have to do masking and that for a while, but you're going to protect your family, you're going to protect your friends, you're going to protect your community, and certainly yourself as well. So those are the messages and you have to keep doing those messages. It's not a one-shot deal here. It's on and on.
One last thing I want to ask you, Doctor. I was, when I went to get my vaccine yesterday, there was a raging argument in the center where I was about whether we should get Pfizer or Moderna. Can you put to bed this debate? Is there any difference between the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine, or do they accomplish the same things?
Essentially, the same vaccine and accomplish the same thing. Amazingly so, the technology of both exactly the same. I mean, almost exactly the same. They're built on a technology that is the same. Their efficacy is the same. Their side effects are the same. We don't know the durability of either vaccine. So I don't think there's really an issue. I've been asked that question multiple times by friends and family. I think the bigger issues is coming down the line, actually, and not so much now. With the J&J vaccine on the horizon, the FDA will be reviewing that in a public meeting in a couple of weeks from today, actually. And then the CDC's advisory committee will be reviewing that data as well and making recommendations. It's a single dose vaccine. It's easier to handle. It's, one shot, one set of side effects if you're going to get them. But the efficacy, at least in the press release, we haven't actually seen the data yet, but the press release from the company announcing it said that the efficacy overall was somewhat lower than 95%. I think it was like 70%. And if you're looking at just severe disease, it was actually better at 85%. But we haven't seen how it breaks down by race or ethnicity or by age or by gender or by people with underlying conditions. And I think you see that data, you're going to see a different vaccine. It's a different technology. And then it's going to come up, well, what kind of recommendations are we going to be using that vaccine? It has some benefits, but maybe it doesn't work as well. We don't know exactly yet. And I think that's where the difficulty is going to be in terms of how the recommendations is and what groups get targeted.
That's really good information and something for us to keep our eye on. I've heard a lot of people saying they're going to wait for the one shot, but you just raised some interesting information that we need to watch and monitor as this goes along. For our remaining, for the sisters Sister Foster, Sister Cortez, and Sister Cook, I want to ask you to put on your hats as practitioners in the field, in the community. And I'm going to ask you what advice you would give to policymakers who might be listening in order to help them do their jobs better, create the systems we need to reach parents and caregivers, Ms. Cook, to reach seniors and veterans, Ms. Foster, and to reach our immigrant communities, Ms. Cortez. What are they missing right now that we need to surface for them and help them to do the best job possible to reach our people? Why don't we start with you, Ms. Foster, and then we'll come to you, Councilwoman, and then to Ms. Cook.
I would say that, of course, I would say that the governor has done an excellent job in terms of this COVID and making sure that he was visible on television, visible during his town hall meetings, and visible in making sure that the information was getting out related to what was happening. And he was bringing the scientists in on the conversation each and every time. So I would say to continue to do that. But also, I think there's some things in our community we can do. The church leaders can reach out to their congregation and let them know that this is what's happening. They may not be given the vaccine at their church, but another church is, and they would recommend they would go there. And also that we would recommend that senior citizen centers like mine start a wellness check. Start calling the seniors on your roll to find out how they're doing. And we have a little grid, whether we check off whether they've had a test done or whether someone in the family's got the vaccine or if they needed some advice or they need some transportation. But I think just continue to be proactive. Don't sit back on our laurels. You know, I had my first shot of Pfizer before. And as a matter of fact, I was supposed to go today at 10:15, but I was not missing this call. And they told me I could come over when it's over. So I'll be going straight over to get my second shot and be getting that and be able to tell my seniors that I've had my first and I've had my second, and I'm here talking to you now and want you to go and get yours as well. So that's what I would recommend we continue to do, be as proactive as we are now.
Thank you. Ms. Councilwoman, is Councilwoman still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Wonderful. What can we do better to ensure that our sisters and brothers in the immigrant community are able to make appointments and to get the information that they need in order to take advantage of the vaccines?
I would add that we have to continue. I have to agree with Ms. Foster's comments. The Murphy administration has done a great job, but we have to continue to build those bridges and in the language that they understand. Make sure that you're connecting to the community's leaders, the pastors. Continue to connect with the nonprofits and let them know that they feel safe, that they are safe. Not just the vaccine, but that when they go get the vaccine, when they do go get the vaccine, that they're going to be okay. I also would like to add that they should do it not just for themselves, but for their family members, because as it has been mentioned more than once, we are a multi-generational household in a lot of Latino communities. But for the policymakers, I would say continue to communicate. Remember, we're not one size fits all. We're 17 Spanish-speaking countries, and the way you speak to a Mexican family is not the way you speak to someone from Chile or Dominican Republic. So you have to keep that in mind and have that multicultural approach.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Cook?
I would have to say I agree with Ms. Cortez and Ms. Foster. The communication has to be kept. And I think that the Governor Murphy's administration is doing an excellent job with this. I think now we have to start bridging to our communities, our local communities, working together to spread the word. I think it's just now seeing, as Ms. Foster said, somebody can say, I've had the vaccine and I'm here today talking to you. And I'm proud to be one of those people who can go out in my community and tell our parents and our families, our seniors, I'm here, I've had the COVID vaccination. So basically getting our local government to spread the word within our communities and our churches, I think is a great start. But I do believe Governor Murphy's administration is doing a great job with getting us through this time of COVID.
Does anyone have tips or advice on how people get vaccine appointments? A lot of folks in our communities don't have internet access or don't have laptops at home. So who has advice for what people can do to get their parents and seniors in their homes online into an appointment slot? What can you share with us? Anybody had a hot take on how to get an appointment?
Well, this is Dr. Bresnitz. I feel like I should say something. I mean, it is clearly a challenge in New Jersey, in other states as well. The demand is not being met by the supply at this point in time. I will say that probably within a couple of months, April, we're going to see that begin to shift. And there may be at some point even in May where there's much more supply than demand. As we vaccinate, many people over the course of a week. The system that we have in New Jersey, there's about 300 active points of dispensing in the state, actually more now with the retail pharmacy program. I forgot who mentioned that CVS is open now, maybe it was Ms. Cook. But the federal government has established what's called a retail pharmacy program where they're supplying vaccines separate from our state allocation right now to 107 retail pharmacies. I think they're either Rite Aid or CVS, and trying to target more vulnerable communities. Now, that number is going to increase over time. So there's that program. A number of local health departments, federally qualified health centers, hospitals that are opening up. There are many other sites that have their own registration system other than the state system. And so it is a project. I mean, it's basically what you're suggesting, and this is a project right now for people to try to find a dose. There's we have over 4 million people who are eligible according to our current, guidelines. So that's a lot of people. And unfortunately, it's not as simple as has it been in the past, for example, to get a flu shot. But I think people have to basically try to register on a number of different sites that, and you can find out what those sites there are on the Department of Health's website. And they at least register on that site so that when the vaccine becomes available, assuming you're eligible, that the site may contact you and say that you can come in and get the vaccine. It is a little bit of a challenge right now, but it's going to get better every day. In the meantime, you got to wear masks. You got to do social distancing. You got to avoid. You got to avoid crowded spaces, wash your hands. I mean, all those things have to continue even after you get vaccinated. So those individuals on this call who are listening or participating, even though you've been vaccinated, you got to keep doing that other stuff.
Thank you for that and for that encouragement. As I mentioned, I have older parents and I've been trying to get them registered. And what I found is, because I'm the oldest, so these things fall to me, is I had to register them on the New Jersey site, and then I had to go to each individual hospital in Bergen County where they live and register them at each one. Each one asks for different information. So it's been like my morning for the last couple of weeks, is going on and trying to see what we can do to get their appointment. So it is a challenge, but I appreciate your encouragement. That, and especially what President Biden said in terms of doses being more readily available. So I'm looking forward to that time as well. But I also want to piggyback on your last comment about staying safe in the meantime. What can we be telling people? How can we, what's those messages we need to just say that again to reinforce for us the hand washing and all of that?
Yes, we call those interventions non-pharmaceutical interventions. You know, they're not drugs, they're not vaccines, they're behavioral, really. And they're about wearing a mask. Actually, you can wear 2 masks, but at least wear one good mask that fits properly. Those surgical masks by themselves are not great. You need something better than that, or 2 masks so that you have compression of that surgical mask. You got to wash your hands frequently. You've got to stay apart from people if you're in the, you know, in the public domain. You've got to avoid congregate settings, avoid small rooms with other people. And, you know, those are the things that you've got to keep doing. And frankly, those were our best vaccines before we had vaccines, and they continue to be our best vaccines for those who are still waiting to get vaccinated.
Thank you, thank you. Now, Ms. Cook, you're the you work with our young people and parents and caregivers at the Board of Education in your role there, and that's really a hot topic right now. The reopening of schools, you know, how we make sure that both the students and the teachers are safe. So give us some insight into what's happening in your neck of the woods as it regards parents' concerns, children's concerns, children wearing masks all day. Give us some insight and opinions on what's happening with you.
So in our district, as I said, we made the decision to stay virtual throughout the remainder of the year, and we hope to be back in September. We do have concerns with our teachers and the unions. They want to be vaccinated before coming back, which is well understood because they do take care of their elderly parents at home. When it comes to our guardians, a lot of our guardians are our grandparents. So they want to be safe sending their children out into our school district. I know some people say, you know, I'm a young parent, or I'm young, my children are young. It doesn't exempt us, and we have to look at the whole picture when it comes to our families and community. And I actually just received information that, you know, I know we spoke about if they don't have internet connection, how are they able to schedule these appointments? And in Union County, I was just advised there is a number for seniors that they can call and schedule. And I'll share that on the chat with our group. I can put it out now if anybody's interested in copying it down. The number is 908-613-7829. And I'll also share that in the chat group for our community members. But in our district, I know even though our schools have been closed, we've been working diligently, our maintenance staff and our custodians, to make sure we're updating our buildings with ventilation systems so that our students can come back when the call is made, with air scrubbers in our rooms, making sure our windows are properly installed and for ventilation. So there's a whole bunch of things we need to do. Schools are changing. When they walk in the door, there are thermometers. They're going to be taking their temperatures as they walk through the doors now, as well as hand sanitizers throughout the hallways and 6 feet distance. So it is going to be a big change even once we do go back, because even though we are being vaccinated, it's going to take some time before we can truly take the mask off and, you know, stop with so much hand washing. So we are identifying those needs, but it is still an ongoing situation. So there is concern from parents, but in our community, they pretty much enjoy being where we're at with staying close. It's a little bit safer for our community.
Bishop Daughtry, I would
Yes,
like to
sir.
jump in just to talk a little bit. I think that Board President Cook is correct. It's an individual thing, to be honest with you, right? Each community is different. Some community has a high number of cases, positivity rates. Some communities have a low case. So therefore, in each community, you have to be able to understand the people to whom you serve. And once you understand that, then you will kind of create a plan based on that. I'll say this: Kane has decided this year to have a commencement ceremony. Other universities decided. Well, we had a commencement ceremony last year, and it went off well. And we really learned lessons learned from what we did there. And this year, we expect to have a graduation over multiple days to be able to ensure that. And I was just interviewed, and someone asked me, why are you doing it? I said, because of what we're doing, the infrastructure we have in place, our risk mitigation plan, our restart plan that we have with our task force. So I think when you go back to the question of education, you have individuals that are concerned, but you have some communities that are not concerned. And they should have the right. And I think Governor Murphy's decision, I was a part of that decision when he closed schools last year. I think a decision to leave it up to the individual districts to provide that answer, whether to close or not, whether to go remote or in-person instruction. And I think it's an individual thing. I think so as we look at education, even as we look at this health crisis, it's an individual thing, right? People are going to make a decision to get vaccinated or not. People are going to make a decision to have continuous testing. People are going to make a decision to wear masks or not. And I think that's the freedoms we have here. But collectively, if we all understand that, if we abide by the CDC guidelines, if we do all the risk mitigations and believe what they're saying in regards to mask up, social distancing, and face masks, then that alleviates some of our own personal stress and what we have.
That is really great insight, Mr. President. I appreciate that. And since I got you on the screen right now, I want to ask you another question about higher education, and maybe you can give us a little bit of insight. In New Jersey, you have commuter colleges and you have residential colleges. What are the different factors that you and your colleagues, university presidents, are thinking about when it comes to protective measures, preventive measures, and how you're making your decisions about classes and classrooms and commencements and so forth? Are there a certain set of factors that you're thinking about, you and your colleagues, as you are making these decisions about how your schools are moving forward?
Well, Bishop, there's a set of standards that came with the higher ed, the governor's plan they put out in regards to school openings. We also follow the governor's executive order. So there is a set of standards. And as I said before, however, if you look at the individual institutions, you have some institutions that were fully remote last year. Kane, we were smart enough to do a phasing approach. Understanding that, I helped, to be honest with you, kind of create the restart plan for the state. So I was able to kind of glean some information in regards to what we can and what we cannot do. But we took an approach to start off as remote and then phase it in person. And some of my colleagues decided to stay fully remote. And that was their decision based on the community, right? Rutgers University have over 50,000 students, right? TC&J, which was closed, have about 6,000 or 7,000 students. So you have to depend on exactly your population. You have to depend on so you have the infrastructure to support, right? Can you provide the density? Can you offer courses where you only have 20% of your course offerings on campus? So we have to make sure all those things, from the infrastructure piece. How do you operationalize the plan, Bishop? But how do you make sure that, do you have enough signage in place? Do you have people understanding that they're committed to what your plan is? And once you have your plan in place, it's easier for you to actually execute that plan, right? And I think Kane has done a great job of executing the plan because it is an individual thing. And the beauty of a higher ed institution in New Jersey is that we're all different. We have suburban schools, we have urban schools, we have community schools, as you said before, and it's really based on, can you support the number of students that are commuting to your school? Can you support them being around the faculty, being around your staff, right? So, if you're in a suburban community, can you support the residential needs of those students, right? Some schools have international students. Can you support them? We, on average, we have about 300 international students. This year, we only had 100 based off of the executive order and based off the travel restrictions. So it's based off of what your university is accustomed to, based off of what your philosophy, and based off your leadership. I'm going to shout out my board of trustees here, and I have my chair on the line. I have trustees Barbara Sobel, I have trustees John Kane Jr. and trustee Matt McDermott. And that's an example of our leadership, right? The fact that we have an important topic, and I have trustees that are on today listening to this and being a part of this process, right? Because we're going to have conversation with them within our committees as we talk about and recap what we've done this year in regards to COVID-19 preparation. What have we done in infrastructure, budget-wise? Are we okay with budget? So I'm glad they're here because they can hear some of the things that we're doing, but also be a part of that. And I also have to shout out one of our trustee members, Ed Oatman. He's a county manager for Union County. He's also one of our board of trustees, and the partnership we have a one-stop shop here at Kane University, right? It goes to what we do as far as serving, right? Because not a lot of institutions have a strong partnership with the county. We offer mobile testing with our county. We are one of 3 schools in the state, Bishop, to process COVID samples in their labs, and that's Rutgers, Princeton, and Kane University, right? So that allows us to actually test our students regularly, allows us to get those results back in a timely fashion. And now with the partnership with we have a vaccination site. So each institution is different. Some institutions are set up to where they have a strong partnership. Some institutions have regionalized situations, but I'm just very pleased to be able to have leadership that recognize service and also recognize the partnership. So I'm excited about what we're doing at Kane University. I look forward to really being a leader in these conversations. I think institutions of higher education, they must be able to be a resource to the community in which they serve. And I think Kane University with the series right now, you're going to see us coming out with different topics, serving our communities, being a resource to support the federal government, to support our state, and more importantly, support our local municipalities and county.
Thank you, Mr. President. That was wonderful information and really appreciative of your leadership, not just at Kane, but for the work that you did before you came to Kane and helping to develop the reopening plan and so much else that it would take us the rest of the day to talk about everything that you have been doing over the course of your career to help move New Jersey forward. As we come to the close of this particular session, which has been so rich in its discussion and its information sharing, I'm going to ask our panelists to just give us some brief closing remarks, the thing that you want us to take away from this discussion. If we don't remember anything else about what you said today, what are the 1 or 2 things you want us to walk away with? And let's start with the Councilwoman Cortez.
I just want to say to the community, the vaccine is safe. Don't do it just for yourself, do it for your family. And when one community rises, we all rise.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Ms. Foster.
I would like to say that, we live in multi-generationals in their homes. So think about everyone in your family, and then think about your community, and think about your church, and go out and be a trusted voice to say that I've had the vaccine, I talked to my doctor, I've had the vaccine, and now I'm okay. So let you do the same and follow up with them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Foster, for your work. Dr. Bresnes?
Yeah, there are a lot of people, both in the private and public sector, who have been working nonstop since more than a year ago to address this pandemic, starting with the hospital workers, all the folks involved with testing, and now with the vaccination campaign. And it's going to take continued effort by all these people in the government, in industry, and obviously in the community, in the churches and synagogues and mosques, in the state, to basically get to where we want to go, which is to get back to what we used to call normal. I'm not sure what that normal is going to look like exactly in the future, where we can go back to eating in restaurants and not be fearful. We can go back to working and not be fearful. and go back to meeting with our friends and family and having meals together and not be fearful. So that's where we're heading.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And finally, Ms. Cook.
Yes, I would just like everybody to know that we all are special and important to somebody, so that we need to continue to educate ourselves on the vaccine and spread the word. Each one teach one, and we are going to make it through this just fine.
Thank you so much. I'm going to give Dr. Repelet the last word, but let me just say before him that this has been an honor for me to be with you. I hope you learned as much as I learned, and that you were inspired and encouraged and informed by the panel that we had today, each one giving us vital information about COVID-19, what we can do individually, as a family, and as a community to help protect ourselves, protect the ones we love, and protect the communities that we live in. We are grateful to each of you for your leadership and for what you are doing in every segment. That I think you've got the state of New Jersey covered in terms of the sectors in which you work. And I'm pleased and proud to have been part of this conversation. I want to remind everyone, if you missed everything, and if you're just tuning in, here's the key thing: the vaccine is safe. Get it for yourself as soon as it's your turn. And in the meantime, wash your hands, wear a mask, stay physically distant, get the information you need in order to make an informed decision for yourselves, for your family. Get the information, pray about it, and then take action. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you at the next of the series of forums, and they're going to share that information with us in just a moment. But for the last word, Dr. Repelet, would you please share with us your final thoughts?
Yes, so on behalf of the Board of Trustees and Kean University, I would like to thank our moderator, who's an author and a bishop and also a political powerhouse in Washington, D.C. and nationally, for really just, blessing us here today. I think that your presence kind of gave us credibility. I think when people outside of the state, or it's in the state, that know who you are and the work that you're doing, be able to say, wow, how did you get Leah Daughtry to be a moderator? And that work right there, I want to say thank you, but it leads into my next compliment. I want to thank my special assistant to governmental affairs of the newly hired, been on the job for a few months right now, Kelly Ledette, really putting this together. Kelly's job is to kind of support us, to be the outward facing agency for us, to be able to be in the hearts and minds of all of our individuals in the state. I want to thank you, Kelly, and also thank the work that you've done with your dynamic team, which is a small and mighty team, but also the work you have with Karen Smith, our VP University Relations. We have also David Jefferson, our program specialist from the Passport Program, and also Craig Coughlin Jr. from University Relations. Really putting together, I put a lot on you, but in a short period of time, you've come up with some dynamic forums, like I said before. So the panel, thank you very much for your insight, for your expertise. I really look forward to just thank you really for coming on and just, really giving your testimony about the work that you're doing in the field. And I'll end up with my last quote, Leah, in regards to what I have in regards to vaccination. Make your decision based on facts and science and not fear. So right now, I'm going to just pass it over to Kelly. She may want to talk about some upcoming events we have, but thank you very much and God bless everyone. Kelly?
Kelly, you're muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
So I just want to say thank you, Dr. Repelet. Thank you to our moderator, Bishop Leah Daughtry. Thank you to our trustees for joining us. Thank you to our incredible panelists. Such great information. We all know that we suffer for a lack of knowledge, and so I am double masked. It can be attractive if you want it to be. But what I want to say most is this has just been incredibly informative, and I look forward to our next one. I'm going to toss this over now to our VP of University Relations so she could tell you how to find more on our social media site and when our next event is. Thank you so much. Karen?
Absolutely. So I'll be brief. I will let you know that the recording of this call will be placed on our Path Forward website. So I've already had requests from our professors who want to be able to show this event to their classes, and that's kean.edu/pathforward. So we encourage you to share that within your networks as well. On that website, you will see information about the other 3 panels that are in the works, planned as part of this series every Friday through March 5th. Next week, we'll be having a conversation about the next steps for our urban communities, which I know will be a great and informative discussion. So we encourage you to watch along with us for that as well. Thank you very much for being here.
Karen, can you put that in the chat, please?
Sure.
The email address for those? Thank you. And that concludes our session, our first session on vaccine safety. So thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it. You have a great day and have a great weekend. And to my board of trustees, thank you for tuning in. It means a lot to have you guys listening in. So thank you.
Thanks, everybody.